Hello everybody, good morning. It's morning here. It's exactly 3:30 in the morning, and I'm doing this recording from the state of Maryland in the United States of America. I salute everybody watching this video. Let me put some lip balm on my lip so I don't insult your you guys by giving you guys a very awful view of myself. I'm so not chic. I don't even have a lip balm around me, but I still avoid the lip from cracking. Yeah, guys. Make me wobble. My name is Big Queen, as you all know. If you are new to my videos, my name is Big Queen Johnson, also known as Olori Foster when I used to be Foster. I have a reason for doing this recording today. I know that it would come as a rude shock to a lot of people for different reasons, for several reasons. Some people because they probably assumed everything by now should be fine. Some other persons probably because they just never heard about it and will be dazed. And to some other people, they've been waiting for this. So either whichever category you fall under, you are welcome. I salute everybody in Nigeria or Nigerians globally, the world at large, and I sympathize and empathize with the family of Mohbad, his friends, his colleagues, and all his well-wishers in his fan base, everybody. I reach out, my heart reaches out to everybody, and I do pray that God will grant all of us the fortitude to bear this loss. It is a deep wound, but an awakening in the sense that his death has brought realization to a lot of people, to a lot of individuals, and has given justice a different course. It has brought out the beast in a lot of people and has also brought out the angelic part of a lot of people. Depending on where you fall under, I would implore you to take or make good use of this death so it doesn't just go into waste. That being said, I would like to talk about the reason I am doing this recording. Now, just so you know, this recording may not start and end here. It may not stop here because at the end of the day, I just put coffee on myself. At the end of the day, I do not know. I've never uploaded on YouTube, and because this I intend to go on YouTube, I don't know the length and how it works. So I would, for trials or for starters, I would stop this at 15 minutes and then proceed. You guys will have to get used to my coffee. So if you're new to my video, you're gonna get used to this part of me, and if you're not new to it, you probably already know what's up now. So fellas, the major reason for doing this video today is just to portray the narrative that has been ongoing as far as the death of Mohbad and how it does relate and pertain to me. You see, if there's one thing his death has taught me, and I do not want to generalize by saying us, is that speak up whilst you can. And to avoid everybody begging your dead body when you're dead and saying, Mohbad, sorry we failed you, endeavor they don't fail you by forcing your voice to be heard. Regardless of what it is, speak up. Don't be mute. And that's why I'm doing this. Excuse me. Sometimes we protect situations, we protect people that do not have our interest at heart, or people who do things they not naturally wouldn't do to their own blood or family, but they do it to us and get away with it because they are smarter, because the system favors them, because they feel empowered, or they're vindictive and just want to get back. Regardless of what your reason for doing something is, if it is evil, no matter how long it takes, it will catch up with you at some point. I'd like to start first by sharing my story. I'll try and do this in a jiffy so I can like streamline everything to the body and to get to the point I want to get to. I'm the third of 6. And as a third of 6, I was in a marriage quite early in my life as a northern girl. Fortunately, unfortunately, it didn't see the day of light. It didn't see the light of day, sorry. It didn't work out. It was a very big one. Imagine a case of 2 big families getting their children married, or marrying, or celebrating the solemnization of their children. It was exactly that lot. Because it didn't work out, and I was so head over heels. I'm a lover girl, by the way. Badly. My bad. I was devastated. I was broken beyond repairs. I remember I was in the UK when that supposed marriage clocked 1 year, and that was the day I made up my mind to move on. In that very hole that I was, I went on with my life. I was a very young, successful business person. As an entrepreneur in my early 20s, I was doing awesomely well. I've always been someone who's had my own opinion. I've always been someone who has my own voice. And I've always been someone who stands up for people who are oppressed. I hate cheating. I hate segregation. And I hate discrimination. By virtue of these standards, I have been privileged to, meet people of influence and affluence. And at a very early age of my life, seriously speaking, I didn't have an idea what lack meant. I didn't know what it was to want something and not exactly get it. Apart from the fact that my parents were comfortable, I choose to use the word comfortable humbly. I was privileged to have parents who looked out for me. I grew up amidst so much love. My father was a force man, and because it was a force man, it made him very busy, traveling back and forth. However, there was nothing at any point in time we wanted that we weren't able to get. If you're watching this video and you've known me from childhood, one thing has been very consistent with me, which is I am a very blunt person. I do not know you. I cannot see you. want to get me low. Ayanka kunina. And because of this, I've had fans and I've had haters, just like every other personality would attract haters and attract fans. On one of my trip to Nigeria, my sister was on Project Film West Africa. Actually, she was on Project Film West Africa even before the first marriage. However, I remember I visited the US to see them. I used to go back and forth then. And while I was here, I met somebody over the internet who wanted to reach her because he was her supposed fan. And it was kind of worrisome that, oh, you are older sister. Initially thought I was the younger one, and then turned out that I was the older one. And then, you know, we just go talking, and then blah blah blah, one thing led to the other. Long story short, I thought I fell in love, or we were supposedly in love. And we started off talking over the phone. I was still in the US at this time. Now, mind you, my siblings were all here. They had all relocated to the US, but I was the only one at that time back home, going back and forth. Living abroad was not in my agenda, was not something I ever thought I was going to do in my life. I always knew that traveling for me was it because of business, but I really never knew I was going to leave. As a matter of fact, I think, independently the first that traveled in my home from my family. You know, I was that independent mentally. Fast forward to being in the US and talking to this nigga. I loved him so much. There was one thing that was very consistent with him, which was his faith for God, his love for God. Every time I called him, he was going to church. Mind you, I'm a girl that just had a serious heartbreak, who had given up on life, and then was going back into being a girl. Of course, I was doing a whole lot of things that I'll consider youthful exuberance. You understand the English? Youthful exuberance, pittance. Why did this English run? Anyways, I am not a linguist. That being said, I was smoking then. I used to smoke cigarettes. I wouldn't lie about that. And then I remember meeting him. You know, being a girl that is very blunt, there was nothing I hid from him. And that has always been my mantra. Come out straight to whoever it is you want to deal with. Those who like you, and those who wouldn't like you, wouldn't like you. And I told him it was a work in progress. Of course, I wanted to stop, but I needed help, like support and all of that. Homeboy seemed very interested and all of that. But there was something weird that was always happening every time I called him. I heard the background and how his friends were very disrespectful to him. They would yell at him and ask him why he was sitting on the couch, whereas he should have been sitting on the floor, because he's still gonna sleep on the he's still gonna sleep on the couch at night. So if you're gonna sleep on the couch at night, why sit on it again during the day to make phone calls when you know that the foam on it will be flat? So that was the entire notion. And each time I called, I found that abusive. I felt that was degrading. I felt that was dehumanizing. I felt that was condescending. And being someone who naturally, like I said earlier, I hate discrimination. I didn't like it. Every time I spoke to him, he was downcast. He had so much worries. There were so many unachieved unachievable goals to him. It was then, but to me there were things that he hadn't just had achieved, but to him there were things that were unachievable. And I planned a surprise with my best friend then, Maurice. And then I stormed to Nigeria. I didn't tell him. I just told him I was sending some things to Nigeria to him through my friend, and I wanted him to meet her up at the hotel. Viola, homeboy, opens the hotel door, blah, 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 and sees me there. And that was the beginning of our relationship. We ended up dating. From that hotel, I remember I paid for our stay in the hotel. I went to Lagos, Nigeria. I went to Ibadan to see my mom. My mom was back home in Nigeria. And on getting to my mom, I had told her, prior to my coming to Nigeria, I had already told my mom. Now, I used to be very, very close to my mom, considered the closest to my mom. And I had told my mom then that I had met this person. And by the first day she spoke to him, she thought she was talking to a girl over the phone. You know, they had a good time and all of that. Long story short was, I got to Nigeria and I told my mom, I like this nigga. My mom was like, oh, but you just met him, blah, blah, blah. I was like, Mom, listen, this guy goes to church. He's a church boy. He has a northern orientation. I'm nothing. I mean, we both have common grounds. He schooled in the University of Jos. For the most part, I also schooled in Jos. His parents live in Abuja. My parents live in Abuja. My dad was living in Abuja, even though my mom was mostly based in Ibadan because of her own businesses. But my dad was based in Abuja. Abuja was family house for us. You know, so there were lots of common grounds. And my mom said, okay, let's pray and see how it goes. I got into the habit of inviting him over to Ibadan to come to my mom's chalets. It was where my mom always hung out each time she was in town, and I had a room there, so I would invite him over there. In short, he was literally coming there to spend the weekend, every weekend, till I left back for the US. I was there making sure he was fine. And then he proposed. He wanted to marry me. He had actually proposed even over the phone while I was away, you know. And then coming down to see the reality and see that the love had even kindled a lot more, you know. I didn't like his living condition. He was extremely looking terrible. Of course, what do I expect of a man, a young lawyer who was working at that time just earning 50,000 naira? I have my reasons for being very detailed. So those keypad warriors, slow down. Like I said, at that time he was very, very he was very shattered. And there were lots of things I needed to work on as far as him. This is a girl that has traveled far and wide, and versus dating a guy that's a church boy, barely seen it all. I remember the first day I took him to the club, you know, with me, and everything was just absurd. My life to him was just a fairy tale, and it didn't seem to add up. But I was determined that I was willing to make it work regardless of his financial situation and constraints. I made sure he came to Ibadan every weekend because I wanted him to have at least the closest to life he could get and comfortability. Each time he came, I would cook, ask the maids to cook, make sure this nigga is fine. When he's leaving, I would charter taxi for him, even though half of the time he would get on the road, come down from the taxi and get on a bus and go to Lagos. Then he said it was because he wanted to use the money to do something else. Why would he be getting a chartered car? You know. And then I started seeing a whole lot of different similarities between life for me and life for him. The difference between my life and his life. And I was like, wow, life is actually in two sides. You know, I may have been, my parents may have struggled, but I probably was a lot younger, you know. I may have grown into seeing them like hustle, but it was not like I needed something and couldn't get it, if you understand what I mean. Versus as I was growing, it got better till it got best. Now, I want you guys to take note of the fact that I was once married. And then when the issue of us getting married came up, I told him point blank, dude, how are we going to do this? You're earning 50K. When my first marriage crashed, I suffered in the hands of bloggers. So I didn't want a situation whereby people would start writing shit and nonsense again and saying, oh, she's feeding her husband. And you know how Nigeria is. Once a woman is financially okay and the man is not, it's as good as the marriage is dead, because they were frustrated. Even though I didn't believe, I was not of that school of thought, excuse me, it was almost impossible for me not to have the notion that that would come into play. So I asked him, I said, dude, you wanting to marry me, how do we want to start? We went to club the other night with 350K. We came out in the morning, driving out of club. I was trying to ask you if you had any change on you to give boys. And we just spent 350K versus you earning 50K a month. Dude, how do we want to do this? Mind you, I'm talking about some 13 years ago. Fast forward, I gave him two options: to join the army or to travel abroad. Those were the two things that I knew I could do within my reach. Knowing the kind of father I had, he was very protective of his girls. A nothing typical man. We never want to see his girls suffer, especially if he's a man that has invested so much in the life of his kids, like my father. Finally, he chose the option to travel. I noticed that he had so many rancors with his family. He had so many issues going on. As far as his sister, his younger sister was a bully. She bullied him so much. His older brother was a segregator. He was very discriminating. They treated him a certain way in the family because he had a certain demeanor. He was more like seen like the weakling, like the you know how it is in a family where they just push a child aside, like the slow one or something. And that made him a very vindictive person. Versus he went through a lot of abuse in the hands of his father. His father was one that always used to hit them when he goes out to play music in churches. His father was Deeper Life, those kind of typical Deeper Life that didn't believe in watching TV and all that good stuff. So the father was an extremist, and he really abused them to the point where one time I heard he almost threw my husband into the well. That being said, he had a very traumatic childhood. There's a part of his childhood that I don't want to talk about for the sake of posterity and for the sake of my children, where he was also abused. Fast forward now to us finally agreeing to set up something together. I spoke to my mom and pleaded with her and asked how she could help me, because I loved him. And my mom said, well, if you love him, I wouldn't blame you, but you know your father would agree. And I said, well, that's exactly why I want to do this. First, I tried to throw it to the ears of my father over his dead body. Was the first thing I heard. In Yamuri, in Azakiji. And I was like, well, I already knew. So the goal was just to abscond, like just run away. And then, oh, well, not abscond, because I wasn't really traveling with anything. Well, abscond, yeah, with him. So I'm sorry, I'm always confused like that when I'm talking. I'll be talking to myself like I have cuckoo. Maybe I have cuckoo, I don't know. Anyways, at this point, my mom contacted the person that always, you know, her agent, the guy that did visas for her and all of that. I had the bills, I paid my mom, we did everything. And then it was time for me to either renew my visa or come back to the US. Now, I told him then, I said, I would have to come back to the US because renewing my visa would alert my father. And once my father knows, he would not allow me to because he knows I want to marry you. So let me just abscond. So I came into the US knowing that my visa was going to expire. But because this dude was going for his interview. And I told God, I said, God, the day of his interview was the day I was leaving Nigeria. I said, God, if this guy gets this visa, I take it that that is your will for us to get married. But if he doesn't get the visa, God, please, I will quickly go back to Nigeria before my visa expires because I know I had about a month and about 3 weeks on my passport then. And the day I was coming in was the day for his interview. He went in for the interview. I think I was in Texas when I called my sister to say I had a safe trip, a safe landing. And then my sister said he got a visa. I was so happy. Immediately, I started putting 2 and 2 together, preparing for my man to come. I called my sister and I pleaded with her I was going to move in with them. And they agreed. They obliged. I moved in with my older sister. First, we had issues because of him. She sent us out. We moved out. Then I went to my younger sister, who moved out of our master bedroom and allowed us to stay there. We were there for 1 long year. That was where I got pregnant with my first daughter. Prior to getting pregnant with my daughter, I had to teach my husband how to drive. I had to get him. So this is a man that even though he is older than me by a year, he wasn't the youngest in the family, but he was treated like the last baby of the house. His mother, I think, overly pampered him, maybe because of his disposition. I don't know, but he was. So when he came, knowing the kind of family I'm from a Jaguda family, like they're Chris. So I had to work on him, toughen him up, like literally like you are. You know, when you love a man, he becomes your son. You become his daughter. And that was the approach I gave my relationship. I invested everything on him. I noticed he had so much low self-esteem and complex. And it was so hard for me because I'm a very, very bold girl. So dealing with a man with that kind of esteem and everything was meaning something. If I do this, it's because it's this. If I do that, it's because it's this. It's because it's that. So that was one reality I had to tell myself I was going to live with for a while. I remember complaining to my mother. My mother told me no marriage will come without its imperfection. So you're either willing to toughen it out. But she promised me that once he got better, like he got to a place of financial comfortability, he was going to straighten out. And I kind of believed her then. I have a headache. Hold on. I kind of believed her that once he gets financially stable, he would get better. Little did I know that once it is stalking you, it's stalking you. It's almost impossible for that to go anywhere. At this point, we had already started making plans on how to start getting paperwork done and everything. Guys, for the sake of time and for the sake of what you call it now, posterity and my kids, I will save some information, but this is just to tell you how Blessing came into the US, how we started. I paid the fees, he bought his ticket, we came down here. And then we started our journey. I started pushing my husband to do everything. Everything he became to the glory of God was, I'll let that go. I'll go on in the next part. Thank you guys for your time so far. The first season is always the most boring, but there are reasons why it's important for you to catch it.